Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's answer that question. Clifton, how much protein do you recommend to your clients?
So the set standard is usually somewhere in from 0.7 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. However, more times when I'm dealing with a client, it's a tough thing. It's a tough challenge to even get them anywhere above 100. And most people that are coming into me are above 100 pounds anyways. On a rare occasion, there might be someone who's a little bit closer into that 100. But for most cases, I will be using kilograms and start them off a little bit lower. So half of that to then slowly increase them to get them used to having around roughly 30 grams per meal. So if that's 3 meals, that's 90 grams of protein. For someone who has never had protein in their life or has never had that sort of considered drive to do so, which a lot of times dealing with Gen Pop, I found my experience with, bumping them up significantly. Let's say if we have an individual who's 160 grams, if we're using a 1-to-1 ratio, adding them from having maybe less than 60 grams a day to 160 seems to be too big a kick. So slowly bumping them up. And then if they are someone who is doing well with that, I'll just increase them right to that 1-to-1 ratio, given our conversation. So that usually only takes over the place of 14 days. Sometimes as quick as a week, sometimes a month. And they're able to work on their satiety from there.
I have that same experience. So you're saying, just to make it clear to everybody, if you have a 200-pound male, the goal is to get them to 200 grams of protein per day. Okay, I know the research is like what you mentioned, 0.7 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, but we can go even more specific and say that body weight number is too crude, right? We need to look at lean body mass, right? So if somebody is overweight, carrying a little extra energy, right? Yeah. Then we want to look at actually what their goal weight is, right? So if someone, let's say we have a female that's 200 pounds, and their goal weight is 160, then getting them to around 160, maybe even a little bit lower than that, might be a better option. But when I talk to other coaches that are experienced, other coaches in the nutrition space, they often say leveraging protein. And leveraging protein means going above that. When you look at some of the research that Dr. Stuart Phillips has done, and he's worked out of McMaster in Hamilton.
Local boy.
Yeah.
Local guy.
Very reputable source. He's published so many studies. The way he has put it, I actually listened to him on a podcast more recently, and he did a systematic review. And the way he put it is, the extra protein, when I mean going above the 1-to-1, is just icing on the cake. So realistically, the resistance exercise is key.
100%.
And I love the fact that he pointed that out, because
you need that imposed demand.
You need that imposed demand. And another thing is, people were saying that, oh, you just have to eat a lot of protein and then your body composition will change. Yeah. That's not necessarily true, because we want body composition shift, but we want it to be functional. 100%. There was a study that I was looking at, and I think he actually did this systematic review, and basically the nuts and bolts of it all was, we don't actually know. We know that when humans take more protein, we see increase in fat-free mass. But then sometimes we don't see an increase in strength. So we don't even know if that fat-free mass is coming from muscle.
Yeah, it could be a plethora of different places, especially if there isn't any sort of demand being put on the body to maintain and build more of that tissue. So exactly. It's up to your genetics, your physiology, what your current activity level is at, whether you're actually going to be burning in excess, right? with that extra energy.
Now, I'll give you a little insight into my experience working with clients or patients in my practice, patients that have chronic pain. If I recommend a higher amount of protein, sometimes that changes their pain levels. Right? So sometimes people are having way too low of protein.
Most of the time. I think I could say, in my experience, I can't speak for anybody else, but the people that I've worked with, if I were to put a number on it, I would say above 90% of people, 85%, upwards of there are having less protein than they need to for even just their day-to-day activity.
When I take a look at some of my clients' logs and I see how much protein they're ingesting, it's funny because you'll have one day that's like 50 grams, and then another day it's like 80 grams, and then one day it's like 160.
Yeah. And they're like, see, I did it. Yeah. You're like, all right, show up for the next 6 days as well, and then we'll be able to write home about something.
When you average it out, it comes to like 90 because of that one outlier.
Exactly.
But you wonder if it's the body just naturally wanting more.
That's another interesting thing to speak about as well. Energy expenditure over the week, you know. So people talk about, I didn't eat as much this week, or I didn't eat as much this day, but I'm still gaining. Well, what are we doing those other 6 days? But the protein it's the average as well that comes into that.
Yeah, we always want to look at the average.
So if you got some much needed information and now you are equipped with how much protein you're supposed to be having on a day-to-day basis, that's awesome. We're now going to be moving into our next segment where we're talking about food labeling. Is it actually a positive thing looking at food labels as good or bad?